They say nothing in life is free. Is that true? Take a moment to scroll through your feed. Chances are you'll see an ad offering something for free. Free shipping, free returns, free trials, free samples. But have you ever wondered who's paying the price for all that free stuff? This series is presented in partnership with a non-profit that helps people understand the true cost of everything they consume. Today we're looking at your clean clothes. Every time you throw them in the washer and dryer, you're releasing invisible plastic particles into the air, polluting the very things that are meant to keep you clean. What gives? Here's what happens when you launder your clothes. Your washer agitates your clothes in hot water along with soap and a little bleach. That may sound like a pretty harmless combo, but it's enough to break down tiny fibers in your clothes and wash them away. These fibers, called microfibers, are too small to be seen by the naked eye. They're about 1,000 times thinner than a strand of human hair. And just like big plastic bags and bottles, they're also made of plastic. Most of our clothes are made from synthetic fabrics like polyester, nylon, rayon, spandex, rayon, lycra, and polyester blends. These synthetic materials are made from nasty petroleum chemicals that over time degrade into microplastics, meaning when you wear, wash, and dry your clothes, those plastics are worn away and released into the environment. Washing machines have been shedding microplastics since they were invented. But it wasn't until recently that scientists started studying their impact on our health and the planet. The first study came out in 2011. Researchers wanted to find out where all the microplastic fibers in wastewater were coming from. So they did what any good scientist would do. They put a bunch of different fabrics in a washing machine and gave it a spin cycle. After running the test, they identified one culprit, polyester. It turns out polyester releases way more microplastics than other fabrics. Since then, more studies have confirmed this finding. One found that a single synthetic t-shirt releases up to 190,000 fibers per wash. That's a lot of plastic entering our waterways, but the problem doesn't end there. You see, once these fibers are released, they don't just disappear. Here's what happens next. First, they make their way into our wastewater system through sewage plants. Studies have found microplastics in 83% of them. From there, they enter waterways and eventually the ocean. In 2019, researchers in Norway and Scotland published a paper describing how plastic fibers accumulate in shellfish and fish. They fed mussels and oysters plastic particles and tracked what happened next. Within 2 weeks, the particles were discovered inside the animal's tissue. Other studies have found microplastics in fish we eat like salmon and trout. Scientists don't know exactly how dangerous eating these fish could be, but they're concerned about the chemicals that the plastic fibers may be carrying. Some of those chemicals are toxic, and over time they can build up in the fish and us. But while researchers work to figure out the effects of eating contaminated fish, other studies are showing that microplastics in laundry are also affecting the air we breathe. Most of us think of outdoor air pollution when we picture harmful airborne particulates, not the air inside our homes. But a 2021 study in Environmental Science and Technology found that microplastics from laundry are a significant source of indoor air pollution. Even more shockingly, the study found that most of the particles came from washing clothes, not drying them. This means that a dirty load of laundry can introduce thousands of plastic particles into your home. Once inside, they mix with dust and stay suspended in the air. Then you breathe them in. We don't know much about the risks of breathing in microplastics, but the few studies that exist are not promising. One of them found that inhaling microfibers causes inflammation in the lungs. Inflammation is your body's way of protecting itself from outside threats like bacteria or allergens. But chronic inflammation has been linked to serious diseases like asthma, cancer, and diabetes. The same study also found that inhaled microplastics travel to lymph nodes and impair the function of immune cells. Basically, breathing in microplastics makes you more vulnerable to infections. And a 2022 study published in Nature found that inhaling microplastics can cause mesotheliomas, a rare form of cancer that affects cells lining the organs in your chest and abdomen. It's unclear how much exposure to microfibers it takes to cause cancer. But according to the Environmental Protection Agency, long-term exposure to particle pollution is associated with increased risk of respiratory and cardiovascular disease, including cancer. That's right. Breathing in these particles may be contributing to your risk of developing cancer. The scary part is that these particles are so small they bypass your body's usual filters. Your nose hairs, mucous membranes, and cilia, which are tiny hair-like structures in your lungs, are designed to catch large particles and prevent them from traveling deep into your body. But microplastics are too small to be caught by these defenses, meaning that they can lodge deep in your lungs and eventually your bloodstream. From there, they can travel to your lymph nodes, spleen, liver, and kidney. And a 2022 study even found microplastics in human blood. Researchers took blood samples from 22 healthy adults and found that 16 of them tested positive for microplastics. They also found a correlation between the amount of microplastics in the participants' blood and their levels of certain chemicals that mimic estrogen. Now, you may have heard of endocrine disruptors before. These are chemicals that interfere with your hormones, which can lead to a bunch of problems, especially during pregnancy. For example, endocrine disruptors have been linked to decreased fertility, altered brain development, and even certain cancers. We don't yet know how dangerous microplastics in the blood are, but one thing is clear: avoiding them altogether is a smart move. Unfortunately, this isn't always easy to do. One study found that 75% of clothing items release microplastics. So it's not just your synthetics that you have to worry about. Even some natural fabrics like hemp and bamboo are produced using nasty petroleum chemicals, which means they too shed microplastics in your wash. That leaves you with two options: spend more money on pricier natural materials, or spend less and do more laundry. Either way, you're exposing yourself to microplastics. So what can you do to protect yourself? Well, for starters, don't wash your clothes as often. A 2021 study found that washing your clothes just once between uses generates significantly fewer microplastics than laundering after 5 wears. And another study found that washing synthetic clothes in cold water instead of hot water generates about half as many microplastics. Cold water may not get your clothes as clean, but you can always use some extra detergent to make up for it. You should also consider cutting back on the dryer. According to a 2019 study, a load of laundry generates 3 times more microplastics in the dryer than in the washer. If you can let your clothes air dry, you'll probably release fewer particles into your home. But wait, there's more. One of the best ways to reduce microplastics in your laundry is to install a microfiber filter in your washing machine. This is an attachment that fits in your washer's drain hose. As the name suggests, its job is to capture microfibers before they go down the drain, and studies show that they work. One found that a microfiber filter can catch around 99% of fibers in a synthetic load of laundry. But remember, this only addresses one part of the problem. It won't help reduce the plastic particles in your indoor air. For that, you need to wash your clothes less often, use cold water, and air dry. And if you're worried about the clothes you already bought, don't throw them out. Instead, consider donating or selling them to someone who can wear them a few more times before they hit the wash cycle. Next time you go shopping, look for clothes made from natural fibers like cotton, hemp, or linen. You can also buy second-hand to reduce the demand for new clothes. And remember, no matter what you buy, wash it less, wash it cold, and air dry it. One study estimates that if everyone did these 3 things, we could cut global microplastic emissions by 21%. In other words, a lot of our so-called free stuff comes with hidden costs that are rarely free. Truth be told, there's a lot of hidden costs out there. And unfortunately, most of us don't learn about them until it's too late. That's why a non-profit was created to help people understand the true cost of everything they consume. Their mission is to educate consumers about the hidden costs of everyday products and inspire change in corporations and policymakers. This is one episode of a 6-part series presented in partnership with a non-profit. The series explores the hidden costs of fast fashion, mass incarceration, car dependency, student debt, corporate lobbying, and online streaming. Watch the rest of the series on their channel or website and follow them on social media for more.